Let's talk one-on-ones. There's a lot of debate out there if you should do them, if you shouldn't. I'm just gonna cut through all the BS. The reality is you have to do them as a good leader, and it becomes your most powerful tool for building a team that's high performing, that loves coming to work. It's a really, really good thing. The problem is none of us were ever taught how to do them well. You might be new to leadership and you're excited and you wanna knock this out of the park, but it just seems complicated and you're scared and you don't know how to do it. Or maybe you've been leading people for a while and you know that you just avoid these things because you dread them, or it just becomes status updates, feels like it's a waste of time. In either case, we just need a simple, repeatable formula that makes it work. So here's a formula to do one-on-ones really well, over and over again. Now, the thing to note is that we overcomplicate it. So if you've read a book on this or listened to an expert, they probably made it so complicated that when you're actually in the one-on-one tomorrow, you don't remember what to do and you're stuck. So I wanna get it really simple and crisp, okay? And we work with leaders of all different levels and all different sizes of companies. So sometimes people will say, oh, but this isn't complex enough. You don't understand, like I'm a high level leader. No, this works for everyone across the board. And it works because it's simple and repeatable. There's 3 steps. The first step is to book a recurring calendar invite. And wait, before you turn this video off, I know that that's very basic. I promise the next 2 tips get into more detail, but I just need to say this because some people don't realize you need to have this as a recurring thing, not just waiting until there's a giant problem to solve. The key is you gotta have a recurring cadence so that it is consistent and you don't fall off the cadence. Because what happens is work gets busy. And so if you start doing one-on-ones and have good intentions, so at some point they fall off because we don't want to do it, or we're busy, we got to cancel this one. And then a year from now, you realize we haven't actually talked in many months. So you want to have a consistent recurring calendar invite. I would say the ideal is every other week. And people always ask, okay, so should it be more or less? I think it depends on your situation. A good rule of thumb is it should never be less than once a month, and it should never be more than once a week. Really depends, and sometimes you want to start with once a week when a relationship or an employee is new and kind of ramp it towards less frequent. But a good happy middle ground is usually every other week. It gives you enough time to stay connected and checked in with each other without it being overbearing and too much on the schedule. I'm very familiar with this stuff, and I know that what always happens is at some point we start canceling these meetings. So here's the thing, there's two important points here. First of all, you don't want to cancel these because it becomes a habit. And next thing you know, you just haven't met in a long time. So what I say is instead of canceling it, just move it. If something popped up today and we had a one-on-one, fine, we got, real life happens, but let's move it to next week instead of canceling it altogether. The second thing that happens is even worse. As a leader, the more you cancel, the more you send a message to your people that they're not important to you. And this is one of those sources of turnover, disengagement, people leaving a job and talking bad about that leader forever. It's because they didn't feel valued and important. So what you want to do is say, no, you're important to me. The work is also important, but we're going to balance these two. All right, second thing, this is all about regular feedback. So again, pause before you freak out because people don't like the word feedback. I just want to be clear that you can't avoid feedback. We're humans working together. And humans are complex and we have all kinds of dynamics, plus we're a team of humans, and there are gonna be problems, there are gonna be disagreements, and there will be tension. The question is not, will there be problems? The question is, will you solve them before they become too big? Regular feedback is how we do this. The idea with this is not to make it scary or overwhelming or these really deep, difficult conversations. The idea is the opposite. I actually want you to make it easy, light, and fun. And here's how you do it. You have to make it normalized. So think of it this way. If we never met and you're my boss and a problem is kind of like brewing and becoming bigger and snowballing, and then one day you say, hey, we need to meet. I'm immediately terrified. I'm expecting that I'm going to get fired. And you're also terrified because you don't want to deliver news like that. And so then we get to the conversation, it's filled with tension. It's really difficult. And the outcome is probably an explosion of emotions. It's like, I am really angry or really sad or gonna leave. What if instead of that story, it was just a normal everyday thing we do? We always talk about how things went, what could be better. And it's something that I just expect as part of the culture here. The way that you do this is by making it a part of every one-on-one is we talk about feedback. And I like to do this in a super simple formula that you repeat every time. The formula goes like this. What's one thing that's working really well? And what's one thing that's not working well? And this is a question that both people answer to each other. And so the manager asks this to the person they manage and vice versa. There's some nuances of how to make this work because as the manager, obviously someone's going to be afraid to share negative feedback with you. And that's why you just have to say thank you and learn to listen well and take their feedback to heart. They'll start to realize, oh, it's a safe place to do this. And this is how we do things here. But when you're delivering feedback to them, they're going to be really nervous. And so you want to make it just a normal part of, hey, this isn't a big problem, but this is something I noticed that could be better. At the end of the day, great people want to get feedback. They actually really desire it. And this is one of the reasons people leave a team or a company is they don't feel like they're growing and improving because no one ever tells them how it's going. And so you want to make it normal so it's not scary. And if we do it every time, then it just becomes part of how we do things. This way you avoid small issues from becoming big problems. Now, one more thing to mention on the note of feedback. There are the occasional scenarios where a difficult conversation needs to be had. I've worked with plenty of leaders in this space and I've been in it myself. It's just kind of a place that sucks to be. It's the reality of working together. But if you can separate it out, okay, we normally have feedback and it's actually positive. It's actually something we look forward to because we're getting better as teams and individuals. Then difficult conversations are a different thing. And this is something where I decide exactly how I want to deliver the message and I actually decide beforehand how I'm opening and closing that conversation. So then I sit down with you and say, listen, we need to have a difficult conversation. It's about X, Y, Z. And then we address the problem as its own thing instead of aiming it at the person like they are a problem. That creates the ability to talk through it and hopefully come to resolution. But the key is because you've made feedback normalized, it's now much more likely that this difficult conversation will go well. All right, step 3, this is where it gets more fun. You're probably here because you're a leader who cares about people. You want to develop them. You want to help them be their best and enjoy their work. Well, the good news is one-on-ones are absolutely the place for this. So along with regular feedback, we also want to do growth and development. The way to do that is to just create a safe space to talk about the person, learn about them, and help them learn about themselves. Now, I think the best way to do this is think of it as a coach. You're just trying to be curious and ask questions. Help them to explore what are things that they love doing. What do they want to do more or less of in their role? What's stuff that's been draining their energy or maybe giving them energy? And also learning about them as a person because they bring their whole self to work. The way to do this is just keep it fresh. And so I've got a list of questions I'm going to share at the end. You can just pull from them every time you go into a one-on-one. Just pick a question and create the space to have conversation. What's helpful on the receiving end is if you also share stories and thoughts. And so I find it helpful to tell people and answer the questions yourself. What is it that lights you up at work? What have you learned along the way? And just create an open dialogue. And so you might want to rotate and have some one-on-ones be about feedback and some be about growth and development. So that's it. Like I said, it's pretty simple. It doesn't mean it's easy. You have to get used to doing it and start making it a rhythm, but it is simple. And simple works better. It's memorable, people know what to expect, and you feel more confident entering into it. So again, it's these 3 things. You got to have a regular cadence on the calendar, stick to it, move, don't cancel. You want to have regular feedback and just normalize that as part of how we do things here. And then you want to have growth and development where you're really helping someone step into their true potential in the role. If you're new to leading people, I just encourage you to try this. Like grab the questions linked here, give it a try this week, and even tell the people. Sometimes leaders get worried, how am I going to start doing this? It's going to feel like jolting to them. Just call it out. I mean, you just say it. You just say, hey, I learned this new thing. I'm going to try it out with you. We're going to start a new cadence called one-on-ones. Like, let's just try it. But if you're a leader that's been doing this, I know you might think, oh, like, Steve, I've already tried some of these things. It doesn't work. Like, here's all the reasons why. Well, hear me out. There's actually a few things I want to touch on that are common hangups that have easy solutions. One of the most common objections is, we just do these one-on-ones and it becomes like status updates. We're just talking about the work. We don't know what to talk about. So we kind of dread the meeting. And then when we get there, it's just like, okay, so yeah, what have you been working on? All right, yeah. All right, so what's coming up next? What do you need from me? And leaders love to say that. Tell me what you need from me. And it's the worst question you can ask because A, they don't know what they need from you. And B, it's just filler and people can feel that. So instead, what I want you to do is think about that, separating the work from the development of the person. The work has its own meetings to talk about status updates, projects. And if you don't have that, you need that in place. The one-on-ones are about the person. This is about the relationship and about them, their purpose, their growth, their development. They have more potential, untapped. And this is the number one reason why people leave companies and jobs is they feel like they're not growing and stepping into what they're capable of. So think of it as the one place in all the busy work week that you actually can see them as a person, help them grow. And guess what? Like they're going to be more productive and contribute more to the team if you create that space for them. So all you do is implement the 3 things we were talking about to create conversation about them versus just about the work. Now, the second most common one is, yeah, but I'm afraid to give the negative feedback. And I'm afraid what the reaction's gonna be. So here's the thing. Statistics over and over show that people want negative feedback. Because think about it, you probably do too. As you've grown and developed in your career, you wanna know how to get better. You wanna know how people perceive you and how you show up. And it's hard to know if no one tells you. And so this is funny because in coaching, we often hear, oh my gosh, it's such a relief to talk to someone who can give me honest feedback because I'm always, in my real job, it's always politics and things and you don't get the real story. So what if you could be the one manager in their career that actually told them honestly what's going really well and what's not and how to grow and get better? So what it becomes then is instead of some annual performance review where it's a surprise, you've been doing terrible all year and you're in trouble. What if instead, along the way, they're getting little tips? Hey, here's something that you could do better. Here's what didn't work well. Think about it this way. And you're partnering with them. You're helping them to grow. I've seen it over and over that people, they're at a dinner party 10 years from now and they're talking about this one manager they had early in their career. You've always heard those stories. And it's usually the person who was a terrible boss. But once in a while you hear a story where it was like the best person and they became a mentor and an inspiration. Like that could be you. You could actually be that to people just by following this formula. So think of it that way. People actually do want feedback. It's just a matter of how it's delivered. And let's be honest, once in a while you will have someone who doesn't want the negative feedback. That'll be very apparent and they're probably not the person you want on your team anyway. So these conversations become not just a way to help your team be high performing. It also becomes a way to vet, like who is the right person? Do they fit here or not? And helping someone either grow in their role or move away from it. All right, last one here. We could probably go for hours on this stuff, but it's really common that leaders say they keep coming to one-on-ones with the same problems over and over. And we keep kind of readdressing the same thing and they're not hearing me. I just want you to think about it in a fresh new way. What if now, moving forward from here, one-on-ones were enjoyable? Both people look forward to it. And it's because you're both owning the conversation. So you can start as the leader by saying, just teeing up, hey, I want to have a fresh new start. I want to make these meetings really valuable for you. So I'm going to bring questions to the table and this is how we're going to run it. We're going to say one thing that's working and not to each other each time. Sometimes I'll have some development questions and then you can feel free to bring stuff too. So prep a question you have for me or something that you were curious about and wanting to learn. That's it. That is the simple framework. I mean, now you literally have a master's degree in this topic. Read all the books out there. They all boil down to this simple framework. And so a lot of people after this, they want those questions to pull from. They want a little more nuance of what about this situation and that. And that's why we have a few tools you can leverage in the link below. We have lists of questions. We have a few different ways to engage with that. We even have a mini course that guides you through all the nuanced scenarios you could face in one-on-ones. And it also gives examples of, all right, here are some situations we've seen, and here's how the dialogue goes. As always with Greenhouse, you can grab a coaching session on this topic. We call it spot coaching. So you can just hop on with a coach, work through your situation, get confidence, and feel ready to go. You can click the link below and get that tool and be on your way. So cheers to better one-on-ones.